Heliya Alekseeva, crystals from the planet Gliese. The lights on the instruments were wildly flickering, disobeying commands. Captain Vince Dahlgren was frantically trying to figure out where among the constellations of the endless, inhospitable cosmos his ship was located. He had managed to input the coordinates of the planet Gliese, the second from the red dwarf star in the constellation Scorpius. This was a desperate measure. The coordinates seemed safe, and the ship's life support system was already on the verge of collapse. On the screen, flickering on and off, Vince tried to see the constellation Scorpius. This area of the galaxy was completely unknown to him. Having been in space scrapes more than once, the captain leaned back in his chair and closed his eyes. He could change nothing and surrendered to fate. In his weary mind, images of his life flashed by. An ambitious and brave astronaut, he had visited many planets. Encountering other worlds and different civilizations, Dahlgren, like in a time machine, heard the quiet whispers of decades and the sighs of centuries. And he restudied the bygone eras. Sometimes he felt like a Superman. Vince had to mine diamonds on the most expensive planet in the universe, Canceri. He had witnessed breathtaking sunsets and sunrises on Tatooine, a planet of 3 suns in the constellation Cygnus. The astronaut had often found himself in poorly habitable conditions, losing consciousness from the vapors of exotic poisonous plants, encountering terrible beasts. He had to kill them to survive. Before his mental eye, images of Earth, his home planet, unfolded, where he, unfortunately, had rarely been and upon returning found that his loved ones had not waited for him. Dahlgren saw the eyes of Illa, huge, blue, laughing. A burning longing filled his soul. She was probably now about 90. But that was nothing. Modern medicine is almost omnipotent, and he was only 40. Time here and there is different. Vince was not religious. New scientific theories about space and time, overturning the old ones, explained everything, and he could not imagine where, among the worn-out expanses of space, God could be. The ship raced, covering vast distances, and Dahlgren could not determine how much time had passed. Suddenly, sparkling dust appeared on the screen, and Vince realized he had entered the upper layers of the atmosphere. He felt a strong vibration penetrating through all layers of the ship's shell, causing a shiver in his body. Now, through the porthole, the astronaut saw blue and green spots of the approaching planet. Struggling to get out of the tilted shuttle on the rocky surface, Vince tried to see what lay behind the veil of low clouds. Dahlgren immediately felt that his weight had increased by a good 30 kilograms, and he struggled against the increased gravity. The ground turned out to be soft and damp, as if it had recently rained. It was warm. The sky was illuminated by 3 suns. One large, hidden behind reddish clouds, scattered light, while the other 2 hung in thick fog, like stars. According to reports from previous expeditions, this planet was considered dead. Therefore, Dahlgren moved forward, not fearing to encounter anyone. But reality turned out to be different. Emerging from the clouds, he saw lush vegetation, probably how Earth looked in its infancy. This was unexpected. To grow biomass and make it a part of the planet takes hundreds of millions of years. Captivated by this sight, the captain felt triumph. He had finally made an important discovery. Dahlgren already imagined himself reporting at the Space Research Council about visiting a planet with conditions similar to Earth. He pictured himself leading the expedition. Thinking about this, Dahlgren looked around, and soon his excitement was replaced by anxiety. On the soft ground, huge, deep tracks of unknown origin were visible, and soon Vince saw who had left them. Fear paralyzed the captain's body, shackled his mind. It was a huge lizard. The monster moved slowly, clumsily stepping with its front legs and sinking into the wet ground. Its hind legs almost dragged, as if the animal were wounded or exhausted. Dahlgren met its gaze and saw exhaustion in its shining eyes. The lizard collapsed on its side, making weak sounds and twitching its legs randomly. The animal was dying. Gradually, its body flattened and became flat, but its eyes, like bright lights, continued to shine. Looking closely, Vince saw that these were shimmering crystals. When the lizard fell, they somehow spilled out and fell to the ground. The astronaut, not understanding why he was doing this, picked them up and hid them in the pocket of his spacesuit. Having walked a few hundred meters more, he stumbled upon a group of giant lizards resembling Earth dinosaurs. Their scales shimmered with a metallic sheen, and their claws looked like tools adapted for manipulating the strange crystals they were gathering from the surface. One of them turned its head and stared at Vince. Its eyes, round, bright, like traffic lights, blinked yellow. The dinosaur emitted a low, vibrating sound that echoed across the plain. "Where did they come from?" thought Dahlgren, slowly backing away. "Who pushed the development of life on this dead planet? Damn it, are these real dinosaurs?" Taking a step back, he stepped on a branch. The crunch made all the lizards turn around at once. Vince dashed towards the nearest rock, feeling his heart pounding in his chest. One of the lizards with an elongated predatory face charged after him, tearing up the ground with its massive paws. The astronaut hid behind a boulder and drew his weapon, but the dinosaurs did not attack. They surrounded him, watching his every move. Making various sounds, they extended their front paws towards him, closely observing how the newcomer reacted to the glow of their eyes. The crystals. Vince felt himself in a tense electromagnetic field. Swirling currents pierced him. He felt his brain processes focus into a dense beam of rays that absorbed the largest dinosaur. Surrounded by the lizards, Dahlgren was like a laboratory rabbit, an unfortunate victim, emptied and indifferent to his fate. But suddenly, an unpleasant shiver ran through Vince's entire body, and he was blinded by a bright light. The crystals in his pocket seemed to come alive. He pulled them out, and the lizards froze, exchanging glances. Then they began to retreat, as if recognizing something in him that deserved respect. They moved into the forest and gradually disappeared among the tall trees with lush green canopies. The captain watched them, trying to comprehend what was happening. In the light of the 3 stars hanging in the sky, he saw a rocky ridge and decided to search for a cave to shelter for the night. It was unknown what other surprises awaited him here. Soon he found a suitable place. Dahlgren made his way through a narrow corridor. He saw a faint light inside. As he advanced into the cave, the astronaut entered a hall clearly created not by the forces of nature, but by the intervention of some intelligence. At the top of the vault, Vince saw several openings arranged in an incomprehensible geometric figure. Dahlgren thought that the openings were positioned in such a way that light penetrated through them at certain hours. What could this mean? What mechanisms could this light activate? Perhaps religious rituals took place here? On the rock wall, there were diagrams of constellations and mysterious lines connecting planets. Perhaps these were trajectories of interstellar flights. Vince very much wanted to touch the crystal to the line indicating his solar system, but he feared incurring someone's wrath and only took a picture of the image. Another mystery. On the smooth floor, Dahlgren saw an empty oxygen tank with an indistinct name of an astronaut. They were in this cave, his heart sank. They flew to a lifeless planet and saw it alive and flourishing. Why did they report that it was dead? What scared them so much? Something happened right here, but all members of the expedition returned back. When in the morning Dahlgren emerged from the cave onto the plain, he saw that the group of lizards was already waiting for him. Upon seeing Vince, they perked up. The captain thought, the deceased lizard, whose crystals lay in his pocket, was very large. Perhaps there is a certain hierarchy among them. Suddenly, his suit began to glow. The strange crystals he had shoved back into his pocket activated. At the same time, Vince noticed that the eyes of the largest lizard flared brighter. The leader of the dinosaurs stood up on its hind legs and emitted a prolonged sound that echoed across the plain. The sky began to change color. Pale white spots appeared against the reddish background. Soon, a strange machine appeared on the horizon, resembling a giant snail with many rotating segments. It approached, leaving a shining trail behind. Dahlgren felt the ground beneath his feet vibrating slightly. Vince realized that the lizards were waiting for this apparatus. One of the dinosaurs turned to the captain, as if inviting him to join. Desperation compelled Dahlgren to step forward, mimicking the behavior of the lizard. Before the astronaut appeared an image of the space station from which he had begun his flight. The machine approached and began to emit sounds resembling musical chords, which made the captain's ears ring. Dahlgren took a few steps and found himself within the machine's range. Inside, lights swirled, and in the next moment he felt himself inside a warm cocoon. It seemed to him that he had been transported through space, and in an instant, Vince found himself in space, next to the station. He felt a gentle push. The invisible walls of the container parted, and opening the hatch, the astronaut found himself inside the ship. Dahlgren was returning to Earth. Inspired by the joy of a new discovery, he contemplated the report on what he had found on the planet Gliese. Now Vince knew that in the depths of space, there exists a civilization capable of uniting biology, technology, and intelligence into forms that humanity cannot yet comprehend. They had created lizards equipped with crystals to manage and sustain the planet's ecosystem. Whoever possessed the crystals was in their sight. By a happy coincidence, Dahlgren had temporarily become a lizard. Thus, on the planet Gliese, the task of establishing a balance between the rapidly filling planet's vegetation and the beings consuming living energy was solved. But when Dahlgren sent a report to Earth about what was happening on the planet Gliese, this information was not taken seriously. His story about an unknown civilization and lizards seemed too fantastic to be true. On Earth, they did not believe that Vince had reached his ship using someone else's unknown apparatus. After all, Dahlgren returned to Earth on his own spaceship. As proof of his story, he could only present the strange crystals, but on Earth, they either discharged or lost connection with the Creator, who had figured out the situation and turned them off. Or this happened due to the rupture of the extraterrestrial intelligence with the ecosystem of Earth. And the image on the rock, as well as the arrangement of the openings in the cave's vault, remained undeciphered. Therefore, the information in the archives about Gliese remained the same: a barren, uninhabitable planet. This greatly saddened Vince. But the captain was sure the activation of the crystals saved his life, and the coordinates necessary for returning to the ship were recorded on the crystal mentally, as Dahlgren knew them. And the astronaut also thought that these crystals were what people call the spark of God, and that the same Creator ignites it, the existence of which he had doubted. Vince felt apprehension that he might simply not notice when the activation of the crystals would occur, when the higher mind would begin to observe the Earthlings through him. Perhaps the previous expedition was saved, just as he was, and therefore the astronauts decided to keep secret what was happening on the planet Gliese. Hearing a soft signal from external communication, Dahlgren saw the image of his old friend on the sleeve of his jacket. "Vince, welcome back," he heard the familiar voice. "We need to celebrate this. I was invited to participate in a dinosaur safari. Do you want to join?" Dahlgren flinched. As if from the depths of space, two yellow lights flared in his consciousness. He restrained his joy at the call. "No, I missed my home. I have Illa with me. Don't you have anything to entertain yourself with? Go to the zoo." "You came back completely different. his friend replied disappointedly. "I advise you to look at the stars tonight. Perhaps you will understand something about yourself," Vince replied harshly. "Stars are for poets. Well, we'll fly without you." Dahlgren felt his heart tighten. The bio-robot lizards from the planet Gliese had saved his life, while his friend was going to kill living, helpless, harmless, herbivorous beings. The eyes of the dinosaur Vince now carried with him at all times. It became his new conscience. He sometimes thought that through them he had a connection with the higher mind. And it is possible that in the expanses of space, this talisman could help him more than once. His records of the journey to the constellation Libra, Dahlgren left in the archive of the Space Research Center for those who might one day shed light on the mystery of the mysterious planet Gliese. But over time, suppressing his disappointment at not becoming famous as a result of his discovery, Vince agreed that it was unnecessary to reveal the mystery of the mysterious planet and interfere with what was happening there. Whoever it was, the creator of life, the source of life, or the laws of the universe and cosmos, they would not allow their design to be destroyed, similar to that which preceded the birth of man on Earth. If Vince had been believed, perhaps people would have been more cautious about interfering with the nature of Earth. But, recalling the invitation to the safari, Vince thought that people would rather want to interfere with the ecosystem of the planet Gliese. Perhaps the fact that Dahlgren was not believed was also the will of God, for this was not yet the time. If this short story resonated with you, you can find the printed edition via the link below this video. A like and a subscription to the channel will help you stay updated on new videos.